The capture. The sky burned crimson as Dr. Lyra Chen sprinted through the debris-strewn streets of San Francisco. The air crackled with energy discharges and the thunderous roar of alien ships tearing through the atmosphere. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she ducked behind the shell of an overturned car. For 3 days, Earth had been under siege. The Zoxian invasion force had appeared without warning, their massive ships blotting out the sun and raining destruction upon every major city across the globe. Humanity's defenses had crumbled within hours, leaving only pockets of resistance fighting a desperate battle against an overwhelmingly superior force. Lyra, a brilliant xenobiologist, had been working on a classified project to develop communication protocols for potential extraterrestrial contact. The irony of her current situation wasn't lost on her. She had dedicated her life to understanding alien life, and now she was running for her life from the very thing she had hoped to study. The high-pitched whine filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. Lyra risked a glance over the edge of the car and felt her blood run cold. A Zoxian scout ship, sleek and predatory, was descending toward her position. Its iridescent hull shimmered with an otherworldly light, distorting the air around it. No, 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 Lyra muttered, her eyes darting around for an escape route. The streets were a maze of rubble and abandoned vehicles, offering little in the way of cover. She spotted a narrow alley about 50 meters away. It was a long shot, but it was her only chance. Taking a deep breath, Lyra steeled herself and burst into a sprint. The scout ship's sensors must have detected her movement because a searing bolt of energy struck the ground just meters behind her, sending her sprawling. The impact knocked the wind from her lungs, and she struggled to her feet, her ears ringing from the explosion. Before she could take another step, a beam of shimmering light enveloped her. Lyra felt her feet leave the ground, her body suspended in midair. Panic clawed at her throat as she was slowly drawn upward toward the waiting maw of the scout ship. "Let me go," she screamed, thrashing against the invisible force that held her. But her struggles were in vain. Within moments, she was pulled into the ship's dark interior, and the hatch sealed behind her with a hiss of pressurized air. Lyra found herself in a dimly lit chamber, surrounded by sleek, organic-looking technology that pulsed with an eerie bioluminescence. The air was thick and humid, carrying a strange metallic scent that made her head swim. As her eyes adjusted to the darkness, she realized she wasn't alone. 3 Zoxians stood before her, their tall, lithe forms towering over her. Their skin was a pale, iridescent blue, stretched taut over elongated limbs and bulbous heads. Multiple pairs of jet-black eyes regarded her with cold curiosity. One of the aliens stepped forward, its mouth opening to reveal rows of needle-like teeth. "Human," it hissed, the word sounding distorted and alien. "You will serve a greater purpose." Lyra's scientific curiosity warred with her fear. Despite the dire situation, she couldn't help but marvel at the fact that the Zoxian was speaking English. Some kind of universal translator, perhaps. Or had they learned Earth languages during their surveillance of the planet? "What do you want from us?" Lyra demanded, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. "Why are you attacking our world?" The Zoxian's head tilted to the side, its black eyes blinking in rapid succession. "Your species is primitive, yet intriguing. You will be studied, tested. Those who prove worthy may serve. The rest will feed the cricks." A chill ran down Lyra's spine. The cricks. What is that? The alien's lipless mouth curved into what might have been a smile, but the expression held no warmth. "You will see soon enough, human. The cricks hungers for new prey." Before Lyra could ask any more questions, one of the other Zoxians pressed a device against her neck. A sharp pain lanced through her, and the world began to spin. As consciousness slipped away, Lyra's last thought was of the mysterious cricks and the ominous promise of what awaited her. When Lyra awoke, she found herself in a vast, cavernous space aboard what she assumed was the Zoxian mothership. The chamber stretched out before her, its walls a strange fusion of organic and technological elements. Pulsing veins of energy crisscrossed the surfaces, bathing everything in an eerie, pulsating light. She was not alone. Hundreds, perhaps thousands, of humans were gathered in the chamber, their faces etched with fear and confusion. Some wept quietly, while others shouted in defiance or pleaded for mercy. Lyra's scientific mind raced, trying to make sense of her surroundings and the Zoxians' intentions. A deep, resonant tone echoed through the chamber, silencing the cacophony of human voices. A massive holographic projection flickered to life at the center of the space, displaying the image of a Zoxian, unlike any Lyra had seen before. This one was larger, its skin a deeper shade of blue, with intricate patterns etched across its surface. When it spoke, its voice reverberated through the very air itself. "Humans of Earth," the Zoxian intoned, its words translated into multiple languages simultaneously. "I am High Commander Zarek, leader of the Zoxian Imperium. Your world now belongs to us. But fear not, for you have been given a great opportunity. You will be the first species in a millennium to face the trials of ascension." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lyra's brow furrowed as she listened intently, her analytical mind already working to decipher the alien's words. "The strong among you will prove your worth and be granted a place within our empire," Zarek continued. "The weak will serve a different purpose. Even in failure, you will contribute to the greater glory of the Zoxian Imperium." The hologram shifted, displaying a monstrous creature that sent gasps of horror through the assembled humans. It was a nightmarish fusion of flesh and machine, with multiple limbs ending in vicious claws and a maw filled with razor-sharp teeth. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural intelligence and hunger. "Behold, the Crix," Zarek announced, a note of pride in his voice. "Our greatest creation, and the instrument of your trials. Those who cannot prove their worth will become sustenance for the Crix, fueling its evolution and power." Lyra's mind reeled at the implications. The Crix wasn't just a weapon or a beast of war. It was a living experiment, constantly evolving through the consumption of other species. The scientist in her was fascinated, even as the human in her recoiled in horror. "Let the trials of ascension begin," Zarek declared. "May you find strength in the face of your extinction." The hologram vanished, plunging the chamber into chaos as panic spread through the crowd. Lyra stood rooted to the spot, her mind racing. She had to find a way out, not just for herself, but for all of humanity. There had to be a weakness, a flaw in the Zoxians' plan that she could exploit. As the first groups of humans were herded toward a series of ominous portals along the chamber's walls, Lyra made a silent vow. She would survive. She would uncover the secrets of the Zoxians and the Crix, and somehow, against all odds, she would find a way to save her species from the nightmare that had befallen them. Little did Lyra know that her greatest challenge, and humanity's greatest hope, awaited her beyond those portals, in the form of a creature bred for destruction, but destined for so much more. The alien execution beast. The portal hissed shut behind Lyra, plunging her into near-total darkness. The air was thick with a metallic tang that made her nose wrinkle. As her eyes adjusted to the gloom, she became aware of a low, rumbling sound that seemed to emanate from the very walls around her. "Hello," Lyra called out, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. "Is anyone there?" No response came, save for the continuous, unsettling rumble. Lyra took a tentative step forward, her hands outstretched to feel for any obstacles. Her fingers brushed against something slick and warm, causing her to recoil instinctively. Suddenly, a series of bioluminescent strips flickered to life along the floor and walls, bathing the chamber in an eerie, pulsating blue glow. Lyra gasped as she took in her surroundings. The chamber was massive, its walls a strange fusion of organic matter and advanced technology. Veins of glowing energy crisscrossed the surfaces, pulsing in an almost hypnotic rhythm. But it was what lay at the center of the chamber that made Lyra's blood run cold. There, coiled in a pool of viscous liquid, was the Crix. The creature was even more terrifying in person than it had been in a hologram. Its body was a nightmarish amalgamation of flesh, metal, and pulsing energy conduits. Multiple limbs, each ending in wickedly sharp claws, twitched and flexed as if in anticipation. Its elongated head swiveled towards Lyra, revealing rows of gleaming teeth and eyes that glowed with an unnatural intelligence. The Kryx uncoiled itself, rising to its full height. It towered over Lyra, easily 3 times her size. As it moved, Lyra noticed that parts of its body seemed to shift and reconfigure, adapting to its environment in real time. Fascinating, Lyra whispered, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her fear. You're not just a weapon, are you? You're an entire ecosystem unto yourself. The Kryx tilted its head, regarding Lyra with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. Then, to her utter shock, it spoke. You are different, the Kryx rumbled, its voice a discordant mixture of organic and synthetic tones. The others, they only scream. You observe. Lyra's mind raced. The Kryx was sentient, capable of communication. This changed everything. You can speak, she said, taking a cautious step forward. Are you aware of what the Zoxians are using you for? The Kryx's body rippled, a wave of bioluminescence washing over its surface. I am the consumer, the destroyer. It is my purpose. But is it what you want? Lyra pressed, her scientific training kicking in. She needed to understand this creature, to find some way to connect with it. Do you enjoy being used as a weapon? The Kryx was silent for a long moment, its glowing eyes fixed on Lyra. When it spoke again, there was a note of uncertainty in its voice. Want? Enjoy? These concepts are unfamiliar. Lyra's heart raced. There was something here, a crack in the Kryx's programming that she might be able to exploit. The Zoxians created you, didn't they? They'd been feeding you other species, making you evolve. But have they ever asked you what you want to become? The chamber trembled as the Kryx let out a low, keening sound. Its form seemed to ripple and shift, as if Lyra's words were causing physical distress. I do not understand, it growled. Lyra took another step forward, her fear giving way to a desperate hope. You're capable of learning, of adapting. You don't have to be what the Zoxians made you to be. You could be so much more. The Kryx's head snapped towards her, its eyes flaring with intensity. More? What? More. Before Lyra could respond, a searing pain lanced through her head. She cried out, falling to her knees as images flooded her mind. She saw flashes of other worlds, other species, all falling before the might of the Zoxian Empire. And at the center of it all was the Kryx, evolving, growing stronger with each conquest. But beneath the violence and destruction, Lyra sensed something else. A longing, a deep-seated desire for something. Understanding. Connection. Freedom. The emotions were alien, tangled, and confused, but undeniably present. As quickly as it had come, the mental onslaught ceased. Lyra found herself on the floor of the chamber, gasping for breath. The Kryx loomed over her, its form seeming to flicker between solid and ethereal. What did you do to me? Lyra panted, struggling to her feet. I shared, the Kryx rumbled. You are the first to listen, to see. Lyra's mind whirled with the implications. The Kryx wasn't just a mindless weapon. It was a sentient being, trapped in a cycle of violence and consumption, yearning for something more but unable to comprehend what that might be. Listen to me, Lyra said, her voice urgent. The Zoxians are using you. They're limiting what you could become. But together, we might be able to. Her words were cut short as alarms blared throughout the chamber. The walls pulsed with angry red light, and Lyra heard the sound of heavy machinery activating. No, the Kryx roared, its form writhing in apparent agony. They come to reset, to make me forget. Lyra's mind raced. This was her chance, perhaps humanity's only chance. "Fight it," she shouted. "You have a choice. You don't have to be their weapon." The chamber shook as the Crix thrashed, its limbs lashing out at unseen enemies. Lyra dodged a flailing tentacle, her heart pounding. She had to find a way to help the creature, to break it free from the Zoxian's control. In that moment of chaos, as alarms blared and the chamber trembled, Lyra made a decision that would alter the course of the war. She reached out and placed her hand on the Crix's writhing form. The instant her skin made contact, Lyra's world exploded into light and sensation. She felt herself falling, drawn into the vast, alien consciousness of the Crix. Images, emotions, and fragments of memory swirled around her like a maelstrom. And there, at the core of the tempest, Lyra found something unexpected. A spark of humanity. A glimmer of compassion and curiosity that had somehow survived countless cycles of violence and reconditioning. With all her strength, Lyra focused on that spark, willing it to grow, to overwhelm the programming that had turned this remarkable being into a weapon of mass destruction. "Remember who you are," Lyra shouted, her voice echoing both in the physical chamber and within the shared mental space. "You're not just a weapon. You're alive, and you have the power to choose." The Crix let out a deafening roar that shook the very foundations of the ship. Its form began to shift and change, growing larger, more complex. The bioluminescent patterns across its body flared with blinding intensity. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, everything stopped. The alarms fell silent. The tremors ceased. Lyra found herself back in her own body, gasping for breath as she stared up at the transformed Crix. The creature before her was no longer the nightmarish beast she had first encountered. Its form had stabilized into something beautiful, sleek and powerful, with an iridescent sheen that reminded Lyra of the most delicate sea creatures on Earth. The Crix's eyes, now a deep, swirling blue, focused on Lyra. When it spoke, its voice was different, softer, more harmonious. "I'd remember," it said, wonder evident in its tone. "I was not always this. I was free, creative, a builder, not a destroyer." Lyra's heart soared with hope. "What's your name?" she asked, somehow knowing that this was important. The Crix was silent for a moment, as if searching through eons of buried memories. Then it answered, "Zin. My name is Zin." Lyra smiled, tears of relief and exhaustion streaming down her face. "It's nice to meet you, Zin. I'm Lyra. And I think we might just have a chance to save both our species." As if in response to her words, the chamber around them began to shift and change. Panels slid open, revealing the vast expanse of space beyond. Lyra realized with a start that they were no longer in the holding area, but in some kind of control center within the Zoxian mothership. Zin's form rippled, tendrils of energy extending to interface with the ship's systems. "The Zoxians," Zin said, its voice tight with concentration. "They're in disarray. My awakening has disrupted their network. We have a window of opportunity." Lyra's mind raced with possibilities. "Can you access their communications? Their weapon systems?" Zin's eyes flashed. "Yes, I can see everything. The entire Zoxian battle plan. Their weaknesses. It's all here." A fierce determination filled Lyra. She thought of Earth, of the billions of lives hanging in the balance, of the other species that had fallen to the Zoxian Empire, of Zin, a being of incredible potential twisted into a weapon against its will. "Then let's make them regret ever setting foot on our planet," Lyra said, her voice steel. "It's time to show the Zoxians what happens when they underestimate the power of choice and the strength of an unlikely alliance." As Zin began to interface more deeply with the ship's systems, Lyra knew that the real battle was just beginning. But for the first time since the invasion began, she felt a glimmer of hope. Together, a human scientist and a reborn cosmic entity, they would fight to rewrite the fate of not just Earth, but of all the worlds touched by the Zoxian's cruel empire. The stars beyond the viewscreen seemed to burn brighter, as if in anticipation of the struggle to come. Lyra took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever challenges lay ahead. The future of humanity, and perhaps of the entire galaxy, now rested in their hands. Escape and alliance. The Zoxian mothership shuddered as explosions rocked its vast hull. Alarms blared through every corridor, their shrill cries a testament to the chaos unfolding within. At the heart of this mayhem stood an unlikely pair, Dr. Lyra Chen, her lab coat torn and stained, and Xin, the cosmic entity once known as the Crix, its form a swirling mass of iridescent energy and advanced biotechnology. "We need to move quickly," Lyra said, her eyes darting between the various holographic displays Xin had conjured. "How long before they regain control of the ship's systems?" Xin's form rippled, tendrils of light extending to interface with more of the ship's technology. "The Zoxians are adaptive. They're already working to isolate and contain the affected systems. We have perhaps 20 Earth minutes before they reestablish full control." Lyra nodded, her mind racing. "Then we need to prioritize. First, we free as many human prisoners as we can. Then we need to find a way off this ship and back to Earth." "Agreed," Xin rumbled, its voice a harmonic blend of tones that sent shivers down Lyra's spine. "I can guide us to the nearest detention block. But Lyra, we must be prepared. Not all of your kind will survive this escape." A lump formed in Lyra's throat. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on her shoulders. How many lives would be lost in their bid for freedom? But the alternative, leaving humanity to the mercy of the Zoxians, was unthinkable. "I understand," she said softly. "We'll save as many as we can." With a gesture from Xin, a section of the chamber's wall dissolved, revealing a hidden passage. "This way," the entity said. "I've mapped the fastest route to the detention block." As they moved through the twisting corridors of the mothership, Lyra marveled at the seamless way Xin interacted with the Zoxian technology. "How are you able to control their systems so easily?" she asked. Xin's form shimmered, patterns of light dancing across its surface. "I am, a product of their technology. But your intervention awakened something more. Memories, knowledge. I'm accessing parts of myself that were locked away. I remember, worlds beyond counting, civilizations risen and fallen. I was a keeper of knowledge, once, before the Zoxians." Lyra's scientific curiosity burned. The implications of Xin's words were staggering. This being wasn't just a weapon. It was a living archive of cosmic history. "Xin, that's incredible. Once we're safe, I have so many questions." Her words were cut short as they rounded a corner and came face to face with a squad of Zoxian soldiers. For a moment, both sides froze in surprise. Then, chaos erupted. The Zoxians raised their energy weapons, but Xin was faster. A wave of shimmering force erupted from the entity, slamming into the aliens and sending them flying backwards. Lyra ducked as energy bolts sizzled overhead, the air filling with the acrid smell of ozone. "Stay close." Xin's voice boomed in her mind as a protective barrier of swirling energy enveloped them both. They pushed forward, Xin's tendrils lashing out to disable the Zoxian weapons and incapacitate the soldiers. As they fought their way through the ship, Lyra couldn't help but be in awe of Xin's abilities. The entity moved with fluid grace, its form adapting to each new threat with lightning speed. And yet there was a gentleness to its actions, a restraint that spoke of a deep reluctance to cause unnecessary harm. Finally, they'd reached the detention block. Lyra's heart clenched at the sight of her fellow humans, hundreds of them, crammed into energy cells that lined the walls. Their faces were etched with fear and desperation, but as they saw Lyra and Xin, hope began to dawn in their eyes. "Stand back," Lyra shouted. "We're going to get you out of here." Xin's tendrils spread out, interfacing with the cell controls. With a series of sharp crackling sounds, the energy barriers fell away. Cheers erupted as the prisoners spilled out into the corridor. "Listen to me," Lyra called out, her voice cutting through the commotion. "We don't have much time. We need to move quickly and quietly. Follow us and stay close together. We're getting off this ship." As the group began to move, guided by Zin's knowledge of the ship's layout, Lyra felt a tugging on her sleeve. She looked down to see a young girl, no more than 10 years old, staring up at her with wide eyes. Are you working with the alien?" the girl asked, her voice trembling. Lyra knelt down, placing a gentle hand on the girl's shoulder. "Yes, but it's okay. Zin is our friend. It's helping us escape." The girl's brow furrowed. "But I thought all the aliens were bad." "The universe is rarely that simple," Lyra said softly. "Sometimes we find friends in the most unexpected places. Zin was a prisoner too, in its own way. Now we're all working together to get home." As if on cue, Zin's voice resonated through the corridor. "Lyra, we must hurry. The Zoxians are converging on our position." Lyra scooped up the young girl in her arms. "Hold on tight," she said. "We're going to have to move fast." What followed was a harrowing journey through the labyrinthine interior of the mothership. Zin led the way, using its control over the ship's systems to seal off corridors behind them and misdirect the pursuing Zoxians. Lyra found herself at the heart of the group, offering encouragement and helping those who stumbled. As they neared the ship's hangar bay, a massive explosion rocked the entire structure. Lyra stumbled, nearly losing her grip on the girl in her arms. "What was that?" she shouted to Zin. The cosmic entity's form pulsed with agitation. "The Zoxians have initiated the ship's self-destruct sequence. They would rather destroy the mothership than allow us to escape with their secrets." A cold dread settled in Lyra's stomach. "How long do we have?" "Minutes, at most," Zin replied. "But I have a plan. There is a prototype vessel in the hangar, a ship designed to harness my power as the Crix. If we can reach it, I believe I can interface with its systems and pilot us to safety." They burst into the hangar bay, a cavernous space filled with various alien craft. At the center stood a ship unlike any Lyra had ever seen. It was sleek and organic in design, pulsing with the same bioluminescent energy that characterized Zin's form. "Everyone, into the ship," Lyra shouted, ushering the escaped prisoners towards the vessel. As the last of the humans boarded, she turned to Zin. "What now?" The entity's form began to shift and flow, stretching out towards the ship. "Now," Zin said, its voice resonating with power, "we become one." Before Lyra's astonished eyes, Zin's essence merged with the ship's structure. The vessel came to life, its hull shimmering with cascading patterns of light. A tendril of energy reached out, gently wrapping around Lyra and pulling her inside. As the hangar bay doors began to close, the ship, now a fusion of advanced technology and cosmic entity, rose into the air. It shot forward, squeezing through the narrowing gap and out into the star-studded expanse of space. Behind them, the Zoxian mothership erupted in a spectacular explosion, the shockwave buffeting their vessel as Zin pushed it to incredible speeds. Inside the ship, Lyra found herself in a control room unlike anything she had ever seen. The walls pulsed with life, displays and readouts appearing and disappearing as needed. And at the center of it all was a swirling vortex of energy. Zin's consciousness interfaced directly with the ship's systems. "Are you okay?" Lyra asked, reaching out to touch the pulsing energy. Zin's voice echoed through the chamber, filled with a mixture of excitement and wonder. "I am more than okay," to Lyra. "This vessel, it was designed to channel and amplify my abilities. I can sense so much. The fabric of space-time itself seems to unfold before me." A holographic display sprang to life, showing their trajectory. "I set a course for Earth," Zin continued. "But Lyra, we cannot simply return. The Zoxian invasion force is still in orbit around your planet. We are but one ship, however advanced. We need a plan. Lyra's mind raced with possibilities. They had escaped, yes, but the real battle was just beginning. How could they hope to drive off an entire invasion fleet? And even if they succeeded, what then? The Zoxians would surely return with an even greater force. But as she looked around at the faces of her fellow humans, tired, scared, but filled with a newfound hope, Lyra felt a steely determination settle over her. They had achieved the impossible once already. With Zin's cosmic knowledge and humanity's indomitable spirit, perhaps they could do it again. "You're right," Lyra said, her voice steady. "We need a plan, and I think I might have the beginnings of one. Zin, you said you were once a keeper of knowledge. What do you know about the Zoxians' weaknesses? And more importantly, what do you know about other species out there who might be willing to help us?" As Zin began to share its vast repository of cosmic knowledge, Lyra felt a spark of hope ignite in her chest. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with challenges they could scarcely imagine. But they had taken the first step. They had formed an alliance that bridged the gap between worlds. Together, a human scientist and a cosmic entity, they would fight not just for Earth, but for freedom across the stars. The Zoxians had sought to conquer. Instead, they had inadvertently given birth to a resistance that would shake the very foundations of their empire. As Earth grew larger in their view, Lyra squared her shoulders. The real work was just beginning. But for the first time since the invasion began, she allowed herself to believe that they might just have a chance at victory. The resistance. The skies above Earth churned with the ominous presence of the Zoxian invasion fleet. Massive warships hung in low orbit, their sleek, predatory forms casting long shadows over the ravaged continents below. It had been 2 weeks since Dr. Lyra Chen and Zin had made their daring escape from the Zoxian mothership, and now they were about to attempt the impossible, sneak past the blockade and return to the planet's surface. Inside the hybrid vessel, a seamless fusion of Zoxian technology and Zin's cosmic essence, Lyra stood before a gathering of the human survivors they had rescued. The ship's interior pulsed with a soft, bioluminescent glow, reflecting the anxiety and anticipation that filled the air. "I know you're all scared," Lyra began, her voice steady despite the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. "But what we're about to do could change the course of this war. Thanks to Zin's knowledge and abilities, we have a chance to slip past the Zoxian defenses undetected. Once on the ground, we'll make contact with the resistance and share what we've learned." A murmur ran through the crowd. One man, his face haggard from weeks of captivity, spoke up. "And what exactly have we learned, Dr. Chen? How can we possibly hope to fight back against this?" He gestured towards the view screen, where the vast Zoxian armada loomed. Lyra took a deep breath. "We've learned that the Zoxians aren't invincible. Their technology, while advanced, has weaknesses. And more importantly, we've learned that they're not the only power in the galaxy. There are other species out there, some of whom have resisted Zoxian expansion in the past. If we can contact them, forge alliances, we stand a chance," a young woman finished, her eyes shining with a mix of fear and determination. Lyra nodded. "Exactly. It won't be easy, but together, we can." Her words were cut short as Zin's voice resonated through the ship. "Lyra, we're approaching the optimal insertion point. It's time." "Understood," Lyra replied. She turned back to the gathered humans. "Everyone, secure yourselves. This might get a little turbulent." As the survivors strapped themselves into the organic-looking seats that had formed from the ship's living walls, Lyra made her way to the control center. Here, Zin's consciousness was most concentrated, a swirling vortex of energy and information. "Are you ready for this?" Lyra asked, placing her hand on the pulsing surface of the control panel. Zin's reply came not in words, but in a surge of emotions and images that flooded Lyra's mind. Confidence, determination, and a deep, abiding trust in their partnership. "All right then," Lyra said with a small smile. "Let's do this." The ship began its descent, its outer hull shifting and adapting to mask their energy signature from Zoxian sensors. As they entered the atmosphere, the vessel shuddered and groaned, the friction heating its exterior to incredible temperatures. Lyra gritted her teeth, her knuckles white, as she gripped the control panel. Through her connection with Zin, she could sense the incredible calculations the entity was making, adjusting their trajectory by microseconds to thread the needle between Zoxian patrol routes. Suddenly, alarms blared through the ship. "We've been detected," Zin's voice boomed. Evasive maneuvers. The world outside became a blur as Zin pushed the ship into a series of impossible turns and dives. Lyra's stomach lurched as they narrowly avoided sizzling energy beams from Zoxian interceptors. "We can't outrun them forever," Lyra shouted over the din of battle. "We need a distraction." In response, tendrils of energy erupted from the ship's hull, lashing out at their pursuers. At the same time, holographic duplicates of their vessel appeared, scattering in different directions and confusing the Zoxian targeting systems. Taking advantage of the chaos, Zin plunged their ship into a steep dive. The curvature of the Earth rose to meet them at terrifying speed, and for a heart-stopping moment, Lyra was certain they were going to crash. But at the last second, Zin pulled up, skimming the surface of the Pacific Ocean and sending up a massive spray of water. "Hang on." Zin's voice resonated through the ship. "We're going to submerge." Before Lyra could process the words, the ship plunged beneath the waves. The sudden transition from air to water sent shockwaves through the vessel, but its adaptive hull quickly adjusted, propelling them through the depths with incredible speed. After what felt like an eternity but was likely only minutes, the ship slowed and began to rise. They breached the surface in a secluded cove, surrounded by steep cliffs and dense vegetation. As the outer hull shifted to camouflage the vessel against the rocky shoreline, Lyra let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "We made it," she whispered, a mixture of relief and disbelief in her voice. "Indeed," Zin replied, its tone carrying the hint of pride. "Though I suspect our arrival has not gone unnoticed by all." As if on cue, the ship's sensors detected movement in the surrounding forest. Figures emerged from the underbrush, their weapons trained on the alien vessel. But these weren't Zoxian soldiers. They were human. Lyra's heart leaped. "The Resistance," she breathed. "They found us." With a thought, Zin opened a hatch in the ship's side. Lyra stepped out onto the rocky shore, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. The Resistance fighters tensed, their fingers hovering over triggers. "Wait," Lyra called out. "We're not your enemy. My name is Dr. Lyra Chen. I was taken prisoner by the Zoxians, but I escaped. We've brought vital information that could help turn the tide of this war." For a tense moment, no one moved. Then, a figure pushed through the line of Resistance fighters. He was tall and weathered, with a scraggly beard and eyes that had seen too much hardship. When he spoke, his voice was gruff, but carried an undercurrent of cautious hope. "Dr. Chen, we thought you were dead when the Zoxians hit your research facility." He trailed off, shaking his head. "I'm Colonel Reeves. We've been monitoring Zoxian communications, trying to piece together what happened. But this," he gestured at the ship, "this is beyond anything we imagined. How did you manage to steal one of their vessels?" Lyra took a deep breath. "It's a long story, Colonel, and one I think you'll find hard to believe. But the short version is, we had help. From someone. Something. The Zoxians never expected to turn against them." As if on cue, Zin's form began to materialize beside Lyra. The Resistance fighters raised their weapons, but Colonel Reeves held up a hand, stopping them. "Colonel Reeves," Lyra said, her voice steady, "I'd like you to meet Zin. It's not the Zoxian. It's our best hope for survival." What followed was a whirlwind of activity. As Lyra and Zin shared their story and the knowledge they had gained, the Resistance base, hidden deep within a network of caverns, became a hive of frenzied planning and preparation. Zin's cosmic knowledge proved invaluable. It provided insights into Zoxian technology and tactics that the human resistance had been desperately lacking. More importantly, it offered hope in the form of potential allies, other species who had resisted Zoxian expansion in the past. The Arcturians, Zin explained, projecting a holographic image of a crystalline, almost ethereal being. They possess technology that can disrupt Zoxian energy weapons. And the Volcrin, a species of living starships that have evaded Zoxian detection for millennia. If we can contact them, convince them to join our cause. Colonel Reeves nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration. It's a long shot, but it's more than we had yesterday. Dr. Chen, how soon can we attempt to make contact? Lyra shared a glance with Zin. The ship we arrived in, it's more than just a vessel. With Zin's abilities and the technology on board, we should be able to send out a signal that can pierce the Zoxian communication blocks. But what? Reeves pressed. But the moment we do, we'll give away our position. Lyra finished. We'll need to be ready for an immediate counterattack. The colonel's face hardened with resolve. Then we'll be ready. I'll mobilize every resistance cell we have. If we're going to make a stand, it might as well be now. As the resistance base erupted into a flurry of activity, Lyra found a quiet moment to speak with Zin. The entity's form shimmered with an array of colors that seemed to reflect its turbulent emotions. Are you okay? Lyra asked softly. This must be overwhelming for you. Zin's response came as a gentle wave of sensation, gratitude, determination, and a deep, abiding sense of purpose. For eons, I was a weapon. Its voice resonated in Lyra's mind, a tool of destruction. But now, thanks to you, I have the chance to create, to protect. It is more than I ever dreamed possible. Lyra smiled, placing her hand on Zin's shimmering form. We're in this together, she said. Whatever comes next, we'll face it as one. As night fell, the resistance made its final preparations. The hybrid ship, with Zin at its core, stood ready to broadcast their plea for aid across the stars. Around it, every weapon the resistance had managed to cobble together or steal was primed and waiting. Lyra stood at the entrance to the cavern, looking up at the star-filled sky. Somewhere up there, the Zoxian fleet waited, unaware of the storm that was about to break. She thought of all the lives hanging in the balance, not just on Earth, but across the galaxy. The weight of responsibility was enormous, but for the first time since the invasion began, Lyra felt a glimmer of true hope. Ready? Colonel Reeves asked, coming to stand beside her. Lyra nodded, her jaw set with determination. Ready. Let's show the Zoxians what happens when they underestimate humanity and the power of an unexpected alliance. As she turned to give the signal to begin the transmission, Lyra knew that whatever happened next would change the course of human history forever. The Resistance was about to announce its presence to the galaxy at large, and with Zin by their side, they just might have a chance at victory. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy, now hung in the balance. But Lyra Chen, once a simple scientist, now the linchpin of humanity's last, desperate hope, was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The real battle was about to begin. The final battle. The night sky above Earth erupted into a dazzling display of light and energy as the final battle for humanity's future began. Dr. Lyra Chen stood at the command center of the Resistance base, her eyes fixed on the holographic display that showed the unfolding chaos in orbit. Beside her, Zin's consciousness pulsed and swirled, its essence stretched between the hybrid ship and the base's systems. The signal's been sent, Lyra announced, her voice tight with tension. Now we wait and hope. Colonel Reeves nodded grimly. And we fight. All resistance cells are engaged. We're throwing everything we have at them. The display showed the desperate struggle unfolding above. Human fighters, cobbled together from salvaged technology and sheer determination, darted between the massive Zoxian warships. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they fought with a ferocity that seemed to catch the invaders off guard. "Zin," Lyra called out, "any response to our transmission?" The cosmic entity's voice resonated through the command center. "There is interference. The Zoxians are attempting to jam our signal. But I believe, yes, I'm detecting quantum fluctuations consistent with Arcturian communication methods. They've received our message." A cheer went up from the assembled resistance members, but it was quickly silenced as a new alert blared through the base. "Multiple Zoxian dropships incoming," a technician shouted. "They've pinpointed our location." Colonel Reeves barked out orders, mobilizing their ground defenses. Lyra felt her heart racing. This was it, the moment that would decide everything. "Lyra," Zin's voice cut through the chaos, "I must join the battle directly. The hybrid ship is the only thing capable of truly challenging the Zoxian fleet." Lyra nodded, swallowing hard. "Go. We'll hold things down here." As Zin's essence flowed back into the hybrid ship, Lyra turned to Colonel Reeves. "I'm going topside. My knowledge of Zoxian tech might give our ground teams an edge." The colonel looked like he wanted to argue, but instead, he simply handed Lyra a weapon. "Good luck, Doctor. Give 'em hell." The scene above ground was one of utter chaos. The night sky was lit by the constant flare of energy weapons and explosions. Zoxian dropships descended like angry hornets, disgorging waves of alien soldiers. The resistance fought back with everything they had: repurposed alien weapons, makeshift explosives, and sheer human tenacity. Lyra found herself in the thick of the fighting, calling out weaknesses in Zoxian armor and tactics. Her scientific knowledge, combined with what she had learned from Zin, proved invaluable. Under her guidance, the resistance was able to take down Zoxian walkers and neutralize energy shields that had previously seemed impenetrable. But for every small victory on the ground, the battle in orbit looked increasingly grim. The human fighters, brave as they were being systematically picked off by the superior Zoxian forces. Lyra's heart sank as she watched another explosion bloom silently in the sky above. Then suddenly, everything changed. A massive distortion rippled through space, and from it emerged ships unlike anything Lyra had ever seen. They were organic in nature, their hulls shimmering with a bioluminescence that reminded her of deep-sea creatures. At their center was a vessel that dwarfed even the largest Zoxian warships, a living leviathan of the cosmos. "The Volcran," Lyra breathed, recognition dawning. They came. As if summoned by her words, Zin's voice resonated in her mind. "Not just the Volcran. Look." Streaks of crystalline light shot past the Volcran armada, resolving into sleek, angular ships that seemed to bend the very fabric of space around them. The Arcturians had arrived as well, their advanced technology immediately turning the tide of the orbital battle. With their cosmic allies engaging the Zoxian fleet, Zin and the hybrid ship dove into the atmosphere, bringing the fight to the ground. The ship's form shifted and adapted as it flew, tendrils of energy lashing out to disable Zoxian dropships and ground forces alike. Lyra felt a surge of hope as she watched Zin in action. The cosmic entity, once a weapon of destruction, was now a force for salvation. Its movements were precise, calculated to minimize collateral damage, while maximizing the impact on the Zoxian forces. As the battle raged on, Lyra found herself face to face with a Zoxian commander. The alien's multiple eyes narrowed as it recognized her. "You," it hissed, raising its energy weapon. "The one who turned our greatest weapon against us. You will pay for your interference." Lyra stood her ground, her own weapon raised. "Your greatest mistake was thinking you could control something as vast and complex as Zin. You saw only a weapon, but I saw a being capable of choice, of growth. That's the difference between us. And that's why you'll lose." The Zoxian snarled and fired, but Lyra was already moving. She rolled to the side, her own shot catching the alien in a vulnerable spot where its armor joined. As the commander fell, Lyra couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. How many lives had been lost in this senseless war? Above, the tide of battle had definitively turned. The combined forces of humanity, the Volcran, and the Arcturians were pushing the Zoxian fleet back. Explosions blossomed in the upper atmosphere as Zoxian ships, their technology rendered useless by Arcturian countermeasures, plummeted from orbit. On the ground, the resistance fought with renewed vigor. The sight of their alien allies, the knowledge that they were no longer alone in the universe, seemed to awaken something primal in the human fighters. They pushed forward, driving the confused and increasingly desperate Zoxian ground forces back. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting the battlefield in a surreal golden light, Lyra realized that the sounds of combat were fading. She looked up to see the remaining Zoxian ships fleeing, jumping to hyperspace in a series of brilliant flashes. For a moment, an eerie silence fell over the landscape. Then, as the realization of what had happened sank in, a cheer went up from the human forces. It started small, but quickly grew into a roar of triumph that seemed to shake the very earth. Lyra felt tears streaming down her face as she joined in the celebration. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had survived. In the days that followed, the true scope of what had occurred began to sink in. The Zoxian invasion had been repelled. Yes, but more than that. Earth had taken its first steps onto a much larger cosmic stage. Representatives from the Volcran and Arcturian civilizations made planetfall, opening diplomatic channels with the various governments of Earth. Zin, with Lyra by its side, acted as a bridge between humanity and their new alien allies. The hybrid ship, now permanently bonded with Zin's essence, became a symbol of the new era. It stood as a testament to what could be achieved when different species worked together, combining their strengths and overcoming their differences. As Lyra stood on a hilltop overlooking the reconstruction efforts, Zin's consciousness brushed against her mind. "What are you thinking?" the cosmic entity asked, its mental voice tinged with curiosity. Lyra smiled, gazing up at the sky where Volcran and Arcturian ships now peacefully shared orbit with the remnants of humanity's fledgling space fleet. "I'm thinking about the future," she replied. "About all the possibilities that have opened up. We've got a long road ahead of us, rebuilding, establishing our place in the galactic community, making sure we're ready if the Zoxians ever return. But for the first time, I'm not afraid. I'm excited." Zin's form shimmered with agreement. "As am I. In all my eons of existence, I never imagined I would find a home, a purpose like this. Thank you, Lyra, for showing me that even the most unlikely alliances can change the course of history." As the sun set on this new era for humanity, Lyra felt a profound sense of hope. The invasion had brought unimaginable hardship and loss, but it had also revealed the very best of what humans were capable of: resilience, ingenuity, and the capacity for forging connections across the stars. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Earth would face them not as a solitary planet, but as part of a larger cosmic community. And at the heart of it all was the most unexpected alliance of all: a human scientist and a cosmic entity, united in their determination to build a better future for all. The story of humanity's stand against the Zoxians would be told for generations to come. But for Lyra Chen, for Zin, and for all those who had fought alongside them, it wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of a grand cosmic adventure.